Ladies and gentlemen, confidence isn't something you're born with or something handed to you. It doesn't depend on your appearance or height. True confidence is built gradually through repetition, facing challenges, and staying consistent. It grows from what you do every day, not from occasional words. Confidence doesn't appear when life is easy. It shows up when you've trained yourself to remain steady in difficult times. This kind of confidence lasts, leads, performs under pressure, and doesn't waver when situations get tough. Most people don't lack confidence because they aren't capable. Instead, they've built their sense of self on feelings rather than actions. They believe confidence will come when circumstances improve, when they get more recognition, or when others notice their potential. But confidence isn't about being seen by others. It comes from seeing yourself clearly and honoring that understanding through your actions. You don't wait to feel confident, you create it through your behavior, your choices, and by becoming someone you can rely on. This process doesn't depend on others or perfect conditions. It begins with how you lead yourself, keep your promises, and uphold your standards. Confidence is a byproduct of integrity, self-trust, and alignment between your words and actions. You build it when you intentionally face challenges, finish what you start, show up even when you don't feel like it, and make decisions based on who you're becoming rather than who you were. Each time you honor your true identity over your doubts, you earn a bit of confidence. Layer those bits day after day, and you create something unshakable. The biggest misconception is that confidence is about image, how you look, sound, or are perceived. Real confidence isn't about impressing others. It comes from being consistent and grounded. People with true confidence don't feel the need to prove anything because they live aligned with their values and standards. They don't have to announce their confidence. Their presence and energy already express it. This isn't theory. It's about practice. It involves 9 specific practices that build genuine, lasting confidence. This confidence is not based on hype, but on identity, not on noise, but on quiet discipline. These practices help you shift your mindset from fragile to focused, stop seeking approval, and move forward with certainty. They help you transition from hoping to trusting, not just in your potential, but in your process. These 9 practices show who you become when no one is watching, when the lights are off, and it's just you, your habits, and your standards. Confidence is created not when everything is easy, but when you stay consistent through chaos, when your choices don't change with circumstances. You don't need to be loud or perfect or impress anyone. You only need to keep the promises that matter and stop relying on outside approval. You need to start living like someone worthy of respect, starting with your own. When you trust yourself, you stop relying on others to do it for you. Confidence isn't about ego. It's about taking ownership. When you take control of your time, energy, habits, and actions, you create something no one can take away. Something steady in difficult times and strong when everything else feels uncertain. These practices will help you build exactly that. The first essential practice for unstoppable confidence is to develop the habit of keeping promises to yourself, not just when it's easy or convenient, but always. This is the foundation, because confidence doesn't come from words, it comes from what you do. It's the track record you build with yourself daily, whether anyone notices or not. Every promise you make creates a point of tension. A line is drawn. Who you say you are steps forward, and your actions either honor or betray that claim. Each time you follow through, you strengthen belief. Each time you don't, you reinforce doubt. Over time, these reinforce your identity. Most people don't realize how often they tell themselves they can't be trusted. They say they'll wake at 6 but hit snooze. They plan to stick to a routine but drift away. They say they'll start tomorrow but delay again. These small choices are loud. They tell your brain your word isn't reliable, your behavior isn't consistent, and your intentions don't matter. If your own word doesn't matter, how can confidence grow? Keeping promises to yourself builds internal respect. You wouldn't trust a friend who constantly cancels, so why do you accept it from yourself? Confidence is self-trust, and trust is built through repetition, not once, not when it's easy, but over and over, especially when it's difficult. Start small. Pick one commitment. Make it daily, clear, and visible. For example, I will stretch for 5 minutes every morning. I will write for 20 minutes after lunch. I will review my priorities before checking messages. Keep it simple, specific, and protect it like your identity depends on it, because it does. The goal isn't quantity, but consistency. One small promise kept every day builds more confidence than 10 big promises broken each week. Discipline is about steadiness, not volume. You develop the habit of showing up, the habit of not negotiating with yourself, the habit of honoring commitments regardless of your mood. Over time, these small successes add up. You stop wondering if you're motivated. You simply do it. You stop arguing with yourself. You act. The decision was made yesterday. The plan is clear. Your identity leads and your actions follow. This is where the shift happens. Your self-talk changes from, I hope I stay on track, to, I'm the kind of person who follows through. That shift in mindset is powerful because when your actions align with your identity, you no longer have to force it. You start to flow naturally. Your energy changes. Others notice. You don't need to talk about what you're doing. They sense it because your presence carries weight. You don't chase confidence. You carry it quietly, steadily, unshakably. People often say, just believe in yourself. But belief isn't handed to you. It's built. You build it one kept promise at a time, one small act of integrity, reminding your brain, I do what I say. You don't break the chain. You don't negotiate. You don't perform. You honor yourself, respect yourself, and reinforce that trust. You won't always feel like it. That's the point. That's what builds confidence. When you do it anyway, you prove you can lead yourself. That kind of confidence, one no one can take away, is where real confidence is born. The second practice that makes you unstoppable is to confront your patterns instead of repeating them. Many people live their entire lives following the same internal scripts they never wrote but still obey. Phrases like, I always mess this up. This is just who I am. Or I'll probably fail again. Become beliefs. These beliefs turn into behaviors, and behaviors shape identity. If you don't take time to examine your patterns, you risk spending your life reinforcing what keeps you stuck. Confidence can't grow in someone who avoids looking at their own thoughts, because your patterns don't care about your goals. They pull you back to what's familiar, even if it's harmful, limiting, or directly opposes what you say you want. You can't outperform your patterns sustainably. If your habits, self-talk, environment, and daily choices still support who you used to be, no amount of motivation will push you forward. You'll burn out, sabotage progress, and repeat the same cycles, just with different people, projects, or plans. The work starts with recognizing your patterns. Ask yourself, when do you lose focus? What situations trigger self-doubt? What phrases do you repeat under pressure? What behaviors do you default to when uncertain? These questions may be uncomfortable, but are necessary because awareness is the first step toward power. Many don't change because they don't believe they need to. They blame external factors for their results, but in truth, it's the unexamined patterns running their lives. Once you see these patterns, you can challenge them. And once challenged, you can replace them. Replace your patterns with intention. Start writing a new script, not by denying the truth, but by creating new defaults. Interrupt old thoughts and replace them with alignment. Stop saying, I always quit, and start saying, I finish what I start. Stop saying, I always mess up, and begin saying, I'm learning to stay focused. Then, critically, act according to these new statements. Behavior builds belief. You can't just say it, you have to live it, especially when it's uncomfortable. Every time you act against an old pattern, you reclaim power and weaken the hold of your old identity. You begin building a new identity aligned with the future you want to create. Confidence grows each time you face resistance. When you recognize what used to break you but respond differently. You enter the situations that once triggered you with calm and clarity. You finish what you once avoided. You hold the standards you used to compromise. That's what real change feels like. Not hype, but ownership. You become someone who leads yourself, not because you never drift, but because you no longer ignore the drift. You catch it sooner and respond faster. You stop letting patterns control your life. That awareness, that authority, that's what creates lasting confidence. You don't have to fix everything at once. Focus on one pattern, one moment. Track it, shift it, replace it, then repeat. One upgrade at a time, one adjustment at a time, one layer of alignment at a time. Confidence doesn't need to be dramatic, it needs to be consistent. The third practice that builds unstoppable confidence is to speak to yourself with clarity, not comfort. The voice inside your head is the narrator of your life. It shapes how you see yourself and colors how you interpret your failures. It influences how you respond when challenges arise. If that voice is undisciplined, vague, or constantly making excuses and softening the truth, it will slowly drain your confidence over time. Can you not build a strong identity? You cannot say, maybe I'll try, and expect to truly believe in yourself. You can't say, I'll get to it eventually, and expect to act with urgency. You can't tell yourself, this is probably too hard, and expect to find energy. Words matter, the ones you say aloud, and especially the ones you quietly tell yourself. Clarity is the language of confidence. When you speak precisely, you focus your energy. You say, I'm doing this today. This is the plan. This is the standard. This is non-negotiable. You repeat those phrases until your subconscious accepts them, until your actions align and your life reflects them. Comfort-based self-talk always looks for the easy way out. It says things like, you've done enough, take it easy, you'll do better tomorrow. While those words seem kind, they quietly train your mind to prioritize feelings over goals, comfort over consistency, and let your identity bend with your emotions. But when you start speaking clearly, everything changes. You stop enabling your weaknesses and excuses. You begin telling the truth, not to tear yourself down, but to support yourself with statements like, this isn't who I am anymore. We don't skip this. We don't delay. We move. You talk to yourself like someone with direction, like a leader who keeps promises, especially when no one else is watching. When done consistently, your internal dialogue fuels your progress rather than fighting against it. But clarity doesn't happen by accident. You develop it. You journal, review, reflect, and write down your patterns, goals, and intentions. You prepare specific language for moments when resistance arises. You rehearse how you'll handle doubt, how you'll speak to yourself when things get tough, when you fail, when you drift. You eliminate phrases like, I'll try, I'm not sure, and I hope, replacing them with I will, and I've decided this is the way. Not because you know every step, but because you know how to keep moving forward. You speak like someone who owns the journey, and eventually your brain believes it. This is how confidence becomes automatic, not because you always feel great, but because your language stays steady under pressure. When your body is tired, your mind says, we adjust, but we don't quit. When your plan feels uncertain, your voice says, we adapt, but we keep going. When fear is loud, your clarity is louder. Your voice leads not by overpowering emotions, but by being more consistent. It doesn't waver, falter, or stop. It holds firm. When your voice holds, your identity strengthens, your standards rise, and your actions follow. The fourth practice that builds unstoppable confidence is to stack evidence, not emotion. Most people wait to feel confident before they act. They wait for certainty, clarity, or a surge of motivation to get moving. But that kind of confidence is fragile. It only lasts when you feel strong. The moment doubt arrives, it collapses. That kind of confidence collapses because it's built on emotion, not proof. Real confidence is built on evidence, not hype, not theory, but tangible, visible proof that you've done hard things, kept your word, followed through, trained, endured, and shown up even when it wasn't easy. That stack of proof becomes your backbone, something you lean on when your mind starts lying to you and your feelings tell you that you can't do it, but your behavior says, I've done this before and I'll do it again. Every time you follow through on something difficult, you earn a receipt, evidence, that extra rep at the gym when you wanted to quit, that early morning you got up anyway, that tough conversation where you led with strength instead of fear. These moments aren't small, they're critical. They stack belief. Emotion is temporary and fluctuates, but evidence is stable and reinforces itself. You look back and see a pattern, and that pattern becomes your identity. The more you show up with discipline, the more confidence becomes inevitable, not because you feel great, but because your life proves it. You stop needing to convince yourself or ask others for reassurance. You have the data, the receipts. You've done the work and earned your belief not through fantasy, but through behavior, and no one can take that from you. This means you start tracking your wins, not just the big ones, but the daily ones. Because most confidence is lost to forgetfulness. We forget how far we've come, how often we've been resilient, and how many times we've followed through. But when you track those wins, write them down, and revisit them, you remember, and remembering builds belief. Create a confidence file, a daily log where you reflect on one hard thing you did each day, writing things like, today, I didn't hit snooze, I said no to something that drained me, or I focused even when I didn't want to. These wins build a trail, a track record, a personal archive that becomes unshakable over time. When doubt hits, and it will, you'll have something to open, read, and remember, not to hype yourself up, but to remind yourself what's true. Confidence doesn't require certainty, it requires reference. When your life becomes a reference point for resilience, you stop doubting every decision, and don't wait for massive wins to validate you. The smallest actions done consistently prove the most. Confidence isn't built in one huge moment. It's built in daily deposits, the 5 minutes you showed up when it was easy or not to, not just the difficult thing you finished when quitting was an option. That's where confidence lives. Eventually you move differently. You stop chasing permission. You stop hoping to feel ready. You just lead because your evidence is solid, your system works, your identity is proven, and no feeling can dismantle what your track record has established. Now, here's the fifth powerful practice that builds unstoppable confidence. You must deliberately engineer challenge into your life. Most people wait for life to push them, hoping the next hard season will make them stronger. But waiting for challenge to find you is passive. Confidence comes from taking the lead, choosing challenge before it chooses you, deliberately doing the hard things on purpose. Comfort is the enemy of confidence. Comfort convinces you that you're strong, when really you're just untested. It feels good and safe, but it keeps you from growing. The longer you stay in comfort, the less capable you feel when things inevitably go sideways. You become soft, uncertain. You haven't practiced adversity. Confidence built in comfort is surface level and fragile. Confidence breaks under pressure when it's built on ease. But when you voluntarily put yourself in pressure, you train resilience and develop grit. You don't panic when things get tough because you've practiced doing hard things, exposing yourself to uncomfortable conditions and staying steady even when your body says stop. This isn't about suffering, it's about stretching, choosing environments, routines, and challenges that sharpen you. You take the stairs instead of the elevator. Choose the conversation you've been avoiding, get up without hitting snooze, write even when you're tired. These acts don't just build results, they build confidence, because every time you do something hard, you rewire your identity and tell yourself, I do hard things. That sentence is powerful and becomes your new narrative. You stop flinching, hesitating, and letting resistance dictate your day because you've trained yourself to expect discomfort and move anyway. The highest performers don't look for ease. They design challenge, set higher standards, remove crutches, and raise the stakes because they know the more they train under pressure, the less it surprises them. The more pressure you can hold, the more confident you become. You create this through habits that intentionally add resistance, cold showers, long runs, deep focus without distractions, days without comfort food, difficult conversations. These aren't just activities, they're reminders that you're capable of more, not ruled by ease, able to lean into the edge without falling apart. Confidence doesn't come from doing what you already know, it comes from stepping into unfamiliar territory and leading anyway. It comes from proving to your brain repeatedly that fear doesn't control your actions, hesitation doesn't stall your standards, and discomfort doesn't mean stop, it means grow. You don't wait for life to get difficult, you prepare for it, making challenge your ally and normalizing friction. Because of this, when real adversity shows up, you're ready, not because you're special, but because you've trained. You've been here before, held the weight, finished the reps, and now confidence isn't a guess, it's a pattern. Next, the sixth practice that builds unstoppable confidence is to define your standard and never negotiate it. You can't be confident if you don't know your standard, and you can't lead yourself if your expectations are unclear or if you change the rules every time life gets inconvenient. A clear standard draws the boundary between who you were and who you're becoming. It's the code you operate by even when no one else does. Most people let the day decide their standard, their energy set the tone, or other people's urgency rewrite their priority. But when you know your standard, you stop bending, stop justifying, and stop letting external circumstances hijack your internal code, because your behavior is driven not by the moment, but by the mission. Your standard is your contract with your future. And when you lower it, you delay your own evolution. When your standard is unclear or negotiable, you tell your brain that your word doesn't matter, that effort is optional, and success is conditional. But when your standard is fixed, holding steady through fatigue, frustration, and distraction, confidence follows, because confidence grows in alignment. Defining your standard means deciding what is no longer negotiable, not what you hope to do or try to do, but what you will do and what gets done, no matter how you feel. The morning routine that never slips, the focus time that never moves, the bedtime that doesn't flex, the workout that always happens. These aren't just tasks, they are anchors that make discipline sustainable. When you define your standard, you eliminate decision fatigue. You no longer wake up asking if you should do it today, you just do it. It's not a choice anymore, it's who you are. You don't argue with your standard, you follow it. And that clarity frees up energy, time, and focus. Following your standard, especially when it's hard, builds a deeper self-respect. You trust yourself more, hesitate less, think faster, execute clean. You move like someone already aligned because you are. You're not chasing excellence, you're reinforcing it. Confidence doesn't come from hitting a single goal. It comes from becoming the kind of person who meets their standard daily. You stop needing outside reminders or external accountability. You lead yourself because you've trained your system to follow a code. But the standard only works if you protect it by setting non-negotiables, boundaries, and lines you don't cross. You don't skip time blocks or give up places in your schedule that don't move. When you live this way, people notice, but more importantly, you notice. You stop feeling scattered, behind, or inconsistent. You're in rhythm. Eventually, the standard becomes so normal that not following it feels wrong, and discipline becomes easy, not because it's less demanding, but because it's automatic. That's what a clear standard does. It guides and transforms you. Next, the seventh way to build confidence is to lead your environment instead of being led by it. Most people let their surroundings dictate their state. The noise, the pressure, the schedule, the inputs all quietly shape decisions without awareness. The more you let your environment steer your behavior, the less you control your trajectory. Confidence erodes, not because you've changed, but because your space pulls you out of alignment. You can't master self-discipline in a disorganized world. If your environment is full of friction, your habits will always be harder than they need to be. When every attempt to focus is met with clutter, noise, and distractions, you fight constantly for clarity, breaking flow, rhythm, and chipping away at self-respect. Those who lead themselves well don't just manage time, they manage space. They take control of their inputs, audit what they allow into their mind, calendar, and conversations. They design environments that pull them toward discipline, not temptation. They make doing the right thing easy and the wrong thing hard. You don't rise to your potential, you fall to the level of your structure. And structure is not just internal, it's external too. Your desk, kitchen, car, schedule, music, energy, and circle. All of it matters. If your space doesn't align with who you're becoming, it will keep you tied to who you were. Confidence grows in spaces that support your standard. When your morning routine flows because your environment is clear, when your meals are aligned because distractions have been removed, when your phone isn't within reach during deep work, and when your relationships don't require you to lower your standard to be understood. These little adjustments change how you carry yourself. Environment isn't just physical, it's relational. If you're surrounded by people who don't respect discipline, your discipline becomes harder to maintain. If your closest circle lives in chaos, you'll start accepting chaos. If the people you speak with daily have no urgency, no vision, no accountability, you'll eventually slow down to match their pace. So you lead, you elevate the room, you filter your conversations, you stop entertaining energy that pulls you out of alignment, You protect your time, you guard your focus, you raise the standard, not just for yourself, but for what's allowed to influence you. You don't need to control everything, but you do need to lead your space. You remove friction, simplify, declutter, and design. You take ownership of your environment like it matters, because it does. When your space starts to reflect your identity, your confidence rises without effort. Eventually, the environment becomes automatic. Support, your systems flow, your space holds the line, your rhythm builds momentum, and that momentum grows. That's how discipline becomes easier. Not because life gets quiet, but because you stop letting the noise lead. The eighth powerful practice that makes you unstoppable is to become the source of your own validation. Most people tie their sense of worth to external approval. They rely on recognition, attention, applause. They wait to be acknowledged before they believe they're enough. But confidence that depends on validation is temporary. It fades. The moment the compliments stop, it evaporates. The second someone questions your ability, if your identity needs reinforcement from outside, you will always be chasing it. You'll always need one more person to say you're doing great, one more comment, one more post, one more like. And when that feedback doesn't come, your motivation collapses, your standard lowers, your habits erode because you were building from the wrong source. Unshakable confidence comes from knowing that what you're doing is aligned whether anyone sees it or not. It comes from creating your own scorecard. It comes from asking yourself, did I show up the way I said I would? Did I honor my process? Did I live with integrity today? If the answer is yes, you win, not because someone said so, but because you know that internal validation gives you freedom. Freedom to move without needing permission. Freedom to be consistent without hype. Freedom to lead without constantly asking, am I good enough? When you know your value, the noise doesn't shake you because you've already decided who you are. You live like it. To build this, you have to stop outsourcing your self-respect. You have to stop handing your identity to people who don't carry your vision. You stop measuring your worth by how you're received and start measuring it by how you show up. You stop looking for applause and start building patterns that align with your values. You do this by creating rituals of self-qualitation, end-of-day reflections, internal audits, moments where you check in and ask yourself, was I excellent today? Not in outcome, but in effort, attitude, and intention. Because when you validate yourself daily, you stop needing the world to do it for you. This doesn't mean you isolate. It means you lead. You can receive feedback, but you don't require it to feel whole. You can accept encouragement, but your actions don't depend on it. That's strength. That's independence. That's self-leadership. Confidence can only live where leadership has taken root. Eventually, you become someone who walks into a room and doesn't need to be noticed because your presence speaks louder than your words. You're not waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. You don't beg to belong. You belong because you are aligned, because you've built belief from behavior. And when life gets quiet, when no one sees the effort, you don't collapse. You keep going because your approval isn't external, it's earned, and you're the one who gives it. That's where confidence becomes permanent. That's where discipline becomes automatic. That's where peace begins. Next, the ninth practice that will make you confident is to finish what you start. It sounds simple, but it's one of the rarest traits. Most people start strong and fade. They commit with energy and disappear when the excitement fades. They get hyped at the beginning and lose focus somewhere in the middle. But confidence can't grow in unfinished work. Confidence grows when you cross the finish line. When you prove to yourself that you're not just a starter, you're a finisher. Every time you leave something undone, you leave a dent in your belief. You reinforce the identity of someone who doesn't follow through. It's not about the size of the project, it's about the habit. If you make a habit of quitting, you'll carry that habit into every area of your life. It becomes a reflex. Start, stall, excuse, repeat. That's not failure. That's erosion. But when you build the habit of finishing, everything changes because now your brain starts seeing yourself differently. You stop being someone who tries, you become someone who does. You stop calling yourself a perfectionist and start calling yourself a finisher. You don't need the work to be flawless. You need it to be done. Finishing builds trust. Every rep you complete, every chapter you close, every rep you don't skip. Those aren't just tasks, they're deposits into your identity. You prove that your word matters, that your behavior matches your standard, that when you say something will happen, it does. To build this habit, you must start small. Pick something you left hanging, a workout you planned and never completed, a chapter you said you'd write, a plan you said you'd finalize, a blocked time you never used. Return to it, finish it, not because it's urgent, but because your identity is worth reinforcing. You must redefine what it means to finish. Doesn't mean perfect. It means done with effort, with integrity, with presence. Don't aim for polish, aim for closure. Get it out, get it delivered, cross it off. That act of closing loops gives your brain peace. It frees energy. It restores confidence. Your brain loves closure. It hates open tasks. Don't just linger. They steal mental bandwidth, make you feel behind, and make you doubt your capacity. But when you start closing the loop, you create space. You create momentum. You tell yourself, I'm in control again. Confidence is not just a feeling. It's a history, a record, a track of repeated behavior that tells your mind, we follow through here. That's what creates the kind of person who doesn't flinch under pressure, who doesn't panic when it gets difficult, because you've built evidence. You finished the thing before, and you'll finish this one too. Finishing gives you feedback. It teaches you what works. It exposes what doesn't. You get stronger from completion, not from perfect starts. You get data. You get truth. And that truth becomes wisdom. You can't gain that insight by stopping halfway. You have to stay long enough to finish. And when you finish something difficult, you don't just get the result. You get the confidence that comes with the process. That's where the edge comes from. Not from talking, not from planning, but from doing, from closing, from executing when others stall. That's the difference maker. You've now walked through the 9 practices that build unstoppable confidence. Not a confidence based on appearance, hype, or ego, but confidence built from action, from identity, from integrity. These aren't motivational ideas. They're practical disciplines. They're the quiet, unshakable patterns that create momentum, belief, and strength, no matter the season, no matter the pressure. You've learned that confidence starts with keeping promises to yourself, that your word matters most when it's private, that your belief in yourself is earned, not inherited, and that every time you do what you said you would do, even when it's invisible, you build something that lasts. You've studied your patterns. You've stopped blaming the outside world. You've started taking ownership of what's happening inside. Confidence isn't found, it's created by confronting your drift, your defaults, your resistance. You've learned that transformation doesn't begin with motivation. It begins with pattern awareness, and leadership starts with self-awareness. You've rewired your language. You've traded soft, vague phrases for clear, powerful ones. You don't whisper, I hope, anymore. You declare, I move, I execute, I finish. Your voice leads you now, not your doubt, because your clarity has taken command. You've built evidence, tangible proof that you're not a tourist in your goals, you're an inhabitant. You live it, you do the hard things, you finish what you start. You've learned to track those wins, to log the behavior, to collect the receipts, because real confidence is a record of how you've lived, not how you've hoped. You've stopped waiting for challenge to build you. You've engineered it on purpose. You've trained under pressure so you don't collapse under chaos. You've chosen discomfort so you could build capacity, because you know now comfort never grows, you stretch, and that's where growth happens. You've defined your standard. You've made it non-negotiable. You've stopped letting emotion rewrite your code. You don't ask yourself if you feel like showing up. You show up because your standard is no longer up for debate. And when the standard becomes the habit, confidence becomes the byproduct. You've stopped letting your environment lead you. You've taken control of your inputs. You've removed the friction. You've made excellence easier to access. You've set boundaries. You've led your space. And in doing so, you've aligned your surroundings with your vision. That's how you create an ecosystem for success. You've stopped outsourcing your worth. You don't beg for validation. You don't perform. for applause. You, your own mirror. Now, you measure your alignment by how you live, not by how others respond. That's what makes you unshakable. That's why you can move quietly and still lead powerfully. And you've become a finisher, not a starter, not a dreamer. Someone who closes the loop, who stays when others stall, who moves when others flinch, who crosses the line not once, but over and over again. That's how real confidence is built. In motion, in resilience, in the repetition of truth. Confidence isn't something that happens by chance. It's something you build with intention through proven practices that anyone can master. What you're about to learn goes beyond quick fixes or empty affirmations. These 9 powerful practices will equip you to face any situation with unwavering certainty and strength. This is your chance to take control, break free from hesitation, and become truly unstoppable. If you want to transform the way you carry yourself and unlock a new level of success, then this is the moment to dive in. Don't miss out on discovering how to create confidence that lasts.